peepers, and I don't know what that is. Some bird. I'm in the Pine Barrens. Windows open. Today, the car was really used as a studio. I actually did some recording with my computer and a condenser mic hung from a rear, what do you call that? Sun blocker. I recorded some of Brian's Far Away, some of the third act, which is simultaneously some other material. So pretty excited about that. I think I say that a lot. I think I'm pretty excitable. Well, so that, number one, just get that out of the way. Pretty cool. Close to being finished this score. I feel energized and excited and happy and like it's springtime, which is great. So other than that, I have something that is at the same time nothing update and a great update, which is I wanted to talk more about something that I touched on in the last entry, which was tending to yourself as an artist and all the ways that your brain is capable of turning things on you. I think as makers, we are constantly battling stress and anxiety demons, and culture demons. Okay, that's a lot. Break. August of last year, I put an album out. I spent almost a year working on it. After that, I probably had a month before I started writing anything again. And that month was horrifying. I've made a lot of different works in my life, a lot of bodies of work. I think that I am a conceptual artist. I like to work in bodies of work. And over the last series of years, I think my first big body of work was 6 years ago. And that was 30 minutes of music. And it was really intense. And same thing then, same time every time. You make something, and I'll speak for myself. I make, and it is out of me. I have birthed this thing, and I feel empty. I feel happy, I feel grateful, I feel proud, and I also feel like I don't know if I'll ever make again. In some ways, that's a great feeling, which sounds contradictory, but it is. It's this beautiful feeling of release, of legacy, which is something that's really hard to let go of in our society, right? Like, what will I leave behind? We make things, we do leave something behind, and hopefully it touches somebody. Hopefully it impacts somebody. That's the only thing you could hope for, is that the thing that you make will resonate with one person. So you release, and I guess I'm speaking in second person. I'll just speak in second person. So you release, you let this thing out into the world, and you are without. A part of you has left. And I think to the untrained maker, that can be really stifling. Those are moments where you're most vulnerable. You've molted, right? And you're thin-skinned. Those are the moments when feelings of doubt or feelings of criticism can affect you the most. I like, now that I've learned after years of doing this in different media, I like that moment afterwards, because I feel like I can just think, I'm without. I'm free. I'm free of the bug for the moment. I'm free of the making. I'm going to do the things that I enjoy doing to kind of feed my soul, right? Parallel. There's going to be a lot of tangents here. Go back to the last entry, the artist date. I had talked about. That's what you're doing when I say feed your soul, or when I say meditate, or treat yourself in whatever way makes you feel happiest or most nourished. This is the artist date. This is what we're talking about. It's the thing that makes you feel whole again, that brings you back. And simultaneously, it's the thing when you are in that making state that can keep feeding you, that can keep sustaining you, that can keep inspiring you. I really like the solitary meditation to get through what I'm working on and what I'm thinking about, and also to come back to that when I'm in my lull. I really like being in nature. I think there's nothing more inspiring than nature and other people. Just observing, even if I'm part of it, like just the observation of other people and the observation of the beauty of interaction and relationship to nature, relationship to other. That's what really clicks with me. Anyway, artist date. I think that when you're in that lull, you can't think about that next piece. You're in such a without. You're just depleted, that to think about the next work to come, it's just so overwhelming. It's like you can't put yourself into it, and for somebody like me, my demons target those moments where I am weakest, and they're like, yeah, like try to make something, because you won't be able to. So it requires that practice. It requires that the memory of past moments where I can tell myself, no, this hasn't worked in the past. Yesterday, I went for a run that was really long, longer than I've run in quite a while, and I was like really beat. I was really beat all day, and after a couple hours, there was a little voice in my head that was like, hey, you have work to do. You should probably try to make today. And I was weak and dumb, and I thought, okay, yeah, I probably should try that. So I sat down at a guitar, and I had my journal open, and I was like jotting things down. I was trying to play things that I've worked on before, and I was so without. I was so not there. I had no energy, physically or mentally, if I could not come to the table. So I quickly remembered, without starting to beat myself up, because that can happen if you're not practiced. Without beating myself up, I noticed what was happening, and I thought, oh, it's silly that I followed that voice. I really should have seen that as a flag. I should have just noticed, don't follow this. Just, it's a day off. So I stopped, and actually I ended up writing some fun stuff, so it's a little contradictory, but August I finished a body. September I started loosely, and it took me September, October. It was probably the end of October before I had a couple pieces down, and I started to conceptualize a body of work. So 2 months before I began to conceptualize a body of work, and it wasn't until the end of November that I was finished that body of work, and it was half the length of the last one. So in some ways we get faster, coming back, but in other ways, every time you need that moment, that break. So I finished it, and that was the EP. Put that out in the middle of December, and I have been in a lull since. I have been in this state. I've been making a lot of stuff, but none of it's been my own. It's not been for me. It's not been for autobiography. It's not been for healing or catharsis. It's not been for the painted suit work. And I've been writing a lot, just jotting things down, or writing truly autobiographically, or writing like for other projects, still trying to tap into some sort of sound design or lyrical design, or something like that is flexing those muscles that I use for that painted soup work. But it's been months and I haven't really made anything. So I'm partly writing just to talk about how to sustain yourself in those moments. I think from, let's say, mid-December, I think it was December 10th, because I released it on my birthday. And from December 10th to now, I have written things and I've played things, but I haven't let myself really start to think you are making something new. I've just let myself kind of create and let it disappear. I'm just making and throwing away, or just making and not thinking about it. I actually keep everything, and I usually use almost everything in some way. Just pulling from journal entries. It's really fun to go back and read previous journals, because I'll see where I wanted to be before I got there. I'll see like an idea that I didn't have the words for, and then 10 pages later, oh look, you start to have words for it. I'll also borrow from myself, but the point is just making and making and making and not thinking about where it's going to go when you're in that lull is really, really important. I hope you can hear those crows. They're great. They're playing with each other and diving at each other. So I go into the woods a lot. I wrote, after Brian and I had started talking about what Far Away was going to look like and how I would score it, I took one day, I took a Sunday, I had nothing planned. I knew I wanted to start writing. I took my journal and I went out into the woods. I went to these woods and I just wandered for hours, and it was cold and it was dark. It was probably, I don't know, it was maybe a month ago, maybe 2 months ago. And I just wandered and wandered and wandered, and I found myself in the middle of the Pine Barrens in a strange clearing, and I just sat down with my journal and I started writing lyrics. At first it was just really loose. I started writing words, and then I started turning them into lyrics, and I started humming them and thinking, and I had my phone on me. I think I probably had it either silenced or on airplane mode, just to not get any kind of interception. And I just recorded a couple versions of things and also talked my way through it, and I sat in the middle of the woods and mumbled to myself, and it was exactly what I needed. It was exactly the inspiration that I needed for that work. And that's the inspiration that I find a lot. That's my artist state frequently. I've sustained my practice of artist dating and lack of expectation for months, and I've gotten to the point where it's a long period of time, and I've actually started to like worry, have I lost it? You know, like the worries that we find ourselves in, that we need to talk ourselves out of. It's been so long that I've actually like started to worry about it, and those demons have kind of gotten the better of me. But I've been trusting the process, and I know that I'm still making, and I'm still practicing, and I'm still thinking, and I know that thinking and that communication with myself will yield a project. It will yield growth, because my stuff it's autobiography, right? So it's, as long as I'm continuing to grow, I will have new material, which is really exciting and gives me great hope. And gives me another reason to want to keep growing and changing and learning, because I'm not just doing it for me, but I'm doing it for this art that I make, which is really, really cool. But the point, after so many words and after so many minutes, is that I actually have something new, and I don't know what it is, and I don't know where it will go in a larger body of work, but that first thing is great, because once you have that one, you start, especially as a conceptual artist, you start to look at it and you start to piece it apart and see what you've done, and you kind of interpret and reinterpret yourself and your own art, and you start to figure out where there are voids around it, and you can fill those voids, and you can start to create a body of work. So I'm really excited that I have one new something, and I think that I already have ideas for a couple other somethings, and I'm not sure what that'll look like, and I'm going to give myself a lot of time. I took a year for that album. I should give myself a year, which is fine. I want to go on some touring. I want to reconfigure some of the music that I already have with Claire and Doug. And we have Doug music to record, and we have Claire music to record, and so, you know, there is no race to get my stuff out. But I am excited that on this day, whatever it is, 23rd of April, that I have some new something. So this is super rambly as it has been, and maybe I should start keeping notes to go by my notes, but for the moment I'm going to keep it rambly and probably cut it here, even though I know when I finish I will think about all the ways that I didn't talk about artist dates or other things. Check out that book. It's really worthwhile. Even just some of the simpler concepts are really worthwhile. There are other books and texts about how to tend to yourself as an artist. Tend to yourself. Tend to yourself. Whether you think you're an artist or not, whether you think that you are a musician or not, or a sculptor or not, or a dancer, or an actor, or a researcher, whatever, you are a thinker and a maker. We are, as long as we are crawling forward in our lives, as long as we are scratching forward, we're making ourselves, and we are making relationship with each other. So find ways to tend to yourself. This is not just for artists. The artist date should be for all of you, for all of us. Figure out what you need and give yourself what you need. It's really important. I think the issues in our world come from a lack of self-care, a lack of honesty, a lack of vulnerability. My last thought is that anger is not an emotion. I think it's a byproduct of emotion. We are pretty simple creatures with pretty simple needs, and we have the capacity to be afraid, fearful, and the capacity to be sad, and some other sort of pillar emotions. But the byproduct of both of those, and some other emotions I can't think of right now, is anger. Often when we don't tend to our needs, we find ourselves in anger. We find ourselves angry. Especially in this culture, in this American culture, we are given the tool of anger, sort of as like an imperfect version of catharsis. It is not, and it will not resolve anything. If you are sad, be sad. If you are afraid, figure out why. I think my point is, if we were going on artist dates and we were doing self-care, we were tending to ourselves and listening to our needs and communicating with those voices that want to be our demons. We're having conversations with them, we're facing them head on. We can overcome that and be more true for each other. I think that being vulnerable with each other is really the most important thing there is. Being open and sharing with each other is really all there is. That's all there is. So now I'll really end this. As always, thank you for listening and watching, and I hope this finds you well. I'll keep you updated when bigger projects come around.